All right, so good afternoon again. And today we will continue our grammar and mechanics unit with adjectives. And as is our custom, we have a word of the day. And today's word of the day is magnanimous. It's an adjective, and it means having or showing a generous and kind nature, or suggesting a lofty and courageous spirit. Examples: she was too magnanimous to resent all the things others had said to her, and a magnanimous donation to the town's animal shelter. And for just a little bit of a backdrop, when you see anima, animus, or a similar formation in a word, it is often an indicator of something alive, lively, or spirited. Something described as animated is full of life, for example, and the word animal refers to a living thing. And then in today's modern world, we have animation, anime. Yes, all of these indicate some sort of life or spirited nature. So the Latin word anima means breath or soul, and animus means spirit. In magnanimous, animus is joined by the Latin word magnus, meaning great. So magnanimous basically means greatness of spirit and is the opposite of selfishness, right? So with that, we can start. So we know that adjectives are words that modify, describe, or qualify a noun or pronoun, and they can also enumerate, identify, define, and limit. And then we know that adverbs are words that modify verbs and adjectives, right? So they are basically two sides of the same coin. And we have different types of adjectives. We have demonstrative, this, that, these, those, distributive, each, every, either, neither, interrogative, which, what, quantitative, and we have those that relate to numerals, 1, 2, and those that are indefinite, all, many, several. We have possessive, my, your, his, or their, and we have qualitative, showing what kind, which is the one that we are most used to, or what we most times designate as adjectives. So large, blue, kind, brave, magnanimous, as we just talked about, all of these are what we most likely designate as adjectives. But again, we have different types. And we already know that adjectives also come in positive, comparative, and superlative forms. So with that being said, articles, nouns, and pronouns can also be used as adjectives. So when a, an, or the identify nouns, they function as adjectives. And we know that these are the articles in our language. And a comes before a consonant, a vowel group with the long U sound, example, unique, and before O when it has the W sound, so one-legged man. You use a with that and not an. And before a word starting with H where the letter is stressed. Example, a handsome hero. So you don't use an for all the words that begin with H. But anyways. And then an is used before a vowel, except the above exceptions, before a silent H, and before a word starting with H, where the first syllable is not stressed. So for example, some people might say half an hour, because they pronounce the hour. Some people say hour, where the H is stressed, so they will say a hour. Others use hour. So the H is not as stressed in different, I guess you could say, accents. Yeah. So people use a or an in those cases. Both are correct. Next, proper nouns sometimes have adjective forms, and as a result, these adjectives are capitalized. So British dishes, thigh spa. Common nouns used as adjectives remain the same, so they're not capitalized. The race car, team captain. And then again, pronouns can also function as adjectives. They identify nouns. So his black wallet, that ball, right? So present and past participles. Oh, and if you have any questions, let me know. If you want me to go back to a slide or repeat something, let me know as well. So we know that present and past participles are a part of verbs. They are verb type. And these can also act as adjectives. So present participle adjectives usually modify nouns that are the agent of an action. So this problem is confusing. The problem is the agent of the action. So it is causing the confusion, right? But past participle adjectives usually modify nouns that are the recipient of an action, meaning that they're the object. So the students are confused by the problem. So still the problem is the cause of the confusion, but the students are the ones that are experiencing that confusion. So confused, use with the object of the sentence, the students. Confusing, use with the subject of the sentence, the problem. So more present participle and past participle pairs include annoying, annoyed, fascinating, fascinated, exciting, excited, shocking, shocked, right? So all of these can also be used as adjectives. And then we have adjectives acting as nouns. So an adjective can act as a noun when the noun it qualifies is omitted but understood. So the rich should help the poor. We know that the noun, if it was in the sentence, would be people. The rich people should help the poor people. But of course, the noun can be omitted, and we know what the noun that would have been modified is. So here, the rich, the poor, they are the nouns in the sentence. The government should do something for the homeless. Again, we know that people would be the noun. That the homeless modifies. And lastly, we have we should respect our elders. Again, same example. So now we move on to problems with adjectives, issues in grammar and expression. So before we continue, just to check up on you, are you okay with what has been shared so far, or do you have any questions?
I'm following.
All right, good. So we move on to incorrect use of adjectives as adverbs. So in informal language, adjectives are sometimes used as adverbs. And we know that again, adverbs modify verbs and adjectives and even sometimes other adverbs. So in writing, if you're writing formally, it is best to avoid this informal style. So he hit that ball real good. While real and good are both adjectives, they act as adverbs in the sentence. Why? Real modifies good, an adjective, while good modifies the verb hit, right? So they both act as adverbs in this sentence. So instead, it can be rewritten to say, he hit that ball really well. And that's just that, simple. So comparative and superlative forms of adverbs. So some adverbs have ER and ESC endings for their comparative and superlative forms, but most, especially adverbs that end in ly, use more and most positive and less and least negative, right? And we know that with comparative, it is comparing two persons, places, things, and with superlative, it's three or more things. So irregular adverbs like badly and well have irregular forms. Badly, worse, worst, well, better, best. So badly and well, they basically use the comparative and superlative forms of good and bad, which we know are adjectives. An example of an adverb that uses ER and EST endings: hard, harder, hardest. So that's one example, right? So double comparatives and superlatives. Use either the ER or an EST ending or more/most to form the comparative or superlative of adjectives. Never use both. So most closest, more funnier, more better. These are not grammatically correct. So just use closest, funnier, better. Linking verbs connect the subject to its description and are usually forms of the verb be. So in a sentence, when you have he is nice, is would have been the linking verb, and it's a form of the word be. So yeah, look out for that as well. Concept that cannot be compared. Adjectives such as unique, infinite or infinite, impossible, perfect, round, square, and destroyed should not be used in the comparative form or superlative form, as they are absolutes. So you will never find a more unique restaurant than this one, because you will never find another restaurant like this one. So there's certain adjectives that you don't add more, most, less, least, ER, EST endings. They're just absolutes. So there is no comparison to be made with these particular adjectives. If something is unique, it is just unique. It's one of a kind. Nothing can be compared to it. If it's infinite, same thing. Impossible, same thing, right? So ensure you think about these concepts and ideas and judge, can these things really be compared with another thing, right? Then we move on to complete comparisons. So unless the context of your sentence makes the comparison clear, be sure to include both of the ideas you are comparing, right? That's supposed to be there. So the sentence Charles Dickens had more popular successes, we have to add some kind of context to the sentence because we don't really know what the successes are being compared to. So Charles Dickens had more popular successes than any other British writer of his time. Complete comparison. I am better. What are you being compared to? I am better at football than Ethan is. Complete comparison. Avoiding double negatives. So no, not, and never can modify the meaning of nouns, pronouns, and other parts of speech in a sentence. When two negatives are used together, they cancel each other out, just like in math. Well, when you multiply, that is, resulting in a positive meaning. So I am not unaware of your feelings in this matter. It's a double negative, so you have to take out one. So, however, unless you want a positive meaning in your sentence, avoid double negatives, just like the one before. So I am not unaware. It just cancels out the entire meaning of the sentence. So instead of saying, I am not aware of your feelings in this matter, or I am aware of your feelings in this matter, I guess that's what the original sentence was trying to portray. You have to avoid the double negatives. So in the next sentences we have, they don't have no reason to go there. Don't, no, double negatives. So it has to be, they don't have any reason to go there, or they have no reason to go there. And the sentence makes sense, still remains negative, nothing is cancelled. Adjective order. So you're using a sentence and it has more than one or two adjectives. How do you put the adjectives in order for it to make sense? So when using two or more adjectives to describe a noun or a pronoun, use the following sequence: size and shape, subjective evaluation, color, origin and type, nouns used as adjectives, noun/pronoun. And so in this slide, we can get a little bit more clarity on the adjective order. So in the first one, a speedy red race car. First, we have the subjective evaluation. It's fast. The color, it's red. Noun used as pronoun. Noun used as adjective, race. And then finally, the noun. The next example, the small cozy brick cottage. And then we have size, it's small. Evaluation, cozy. Type, brick. Finally, the noun, cottage. Last example, tall African statues. Size, tall, origin, African, noun, statues. Simple as that. So ensure that you remember the order in which the adjectives should be, because based on the order, it might completely seem off. For example, instead of having tall African statues, you have African tall statues. It doesn't really sound like it's correct, right? So ensure that you have your adjective order correctly. So we have adjective position. So adjectives can appear before or after the subject or after a linking verb. And we did talk about linking verbs before. They can be, but they usually are a form of the word be, but they can also appeal to the senses. So taste, appear, feel, all of these can act as linking verbs. And then adjectives can even act as appositives. So these are like small extra identification to a particular noun or pronoun. So in the first example, we see the adjectives appear before the subject. The sick and destitute poet no longer believed love could save him. Sick and destitute come before the noun poet. In the second one, we have it coming after the noun, and here it acts as a positive phrase. So the poet, sick and destitute, no longer believed that love could save him. And then in the last sentence now, it comes after a linking verb. No longer believe in love could save him. The poet was sick and destitute. And we know the linking verb is was, right? So these are different positions adjectives can take in a sentence. And of course, position and order work together. So before the noun, we have the towering, dark, windswept hills. We know hills is a noun that is being modified in this short clause. And the order is size, color, and type. And then in the second example, we have adjectives coming before and after the noun. So we have, extra positions to add. So the towering hills, dark and windswept. Size, noun. Size, noun, color, type. Yeah, right. Almost got confused right here. But depending on the position of your adjectives, people can tell what kind of genre you are speaking to. So let's say, for example, the first one seems to be more prose-centered, towering, dark, windswept hills. You can see it more in a novel, a short story, a drama, maybe. But the second one seems a little bit more poetic in a sense. So depending on how you position your adjectives, the order, the entire atmosphere, the tone and mood of your sentence, it can align with your particular genre that you're speaking to or addressing, right? So with that being said, we have additional adjective notes. So elder/eldest can only be used for people. Older/oldest are used for persons and things in other cases, and even animals as well. Number 2, farther/farthest refer to distance. Further indicates additional. So who can go the farther? Or who can go the farthest, right? And further notes, further information, yeah, additional versus distance. Last means final, latest means most recent. Fewer is used for number, fewer people. Less is used for quantity and size, less milk. So things that can be counted, they use fewer. Things that cannot be counted, but they have quantity and size, they use less, right? So you can't count every single molecule of milk, so it has to use less instead of fewer. And people have to use fewer instead of less. So other is used with the comparative form of adjectives. So example, this paper has a larger circulation than any other newspaper. So other and larger, they go together. Larger is a comparative form of large. Second one, remember that adjectives must agree with the other elements in the sentence. So those kind of experiments are dangerous. Experiments are and those, all of these designate plurality, but kind is singular. So it can be changed to experiments of that kind, singular, are dangerous, or that kind of experiment is dangerous, or those kinds of experiments are dangerous. So all the elements of the sentence, they have to agree. And lastly, distributive adjectives, each, every, either, neither, require a verb in the singular form. So we know either and neither are used for two objects, two people, two things, and each and every are used for two or more objects or things. But again, they still require a singular verb. So here we have an activity, and I'm hoping that you can participate. So give a single adjective to replace the words in italics. His contribution was made of his own free will. What adjective would replace made of his own free will? If you're speaking, you're on mute. Well, you're muted, I should say.
Sorry, I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. No problem.
Free willed?
Pardon?
Free willed? He was free willed?
No, you're supposed to give me a single adjective that can replace the words in the italics. So, well, let me take this one and show you what I'm talking about. So his contribution was made of his own free will, you can say his contribution was voluntary. He volunteered to do it. And to volunteer, you do something of your own free will, right? If it's involuntary now, we know that somebody might have forced him to make the contribution or whatever. So voluntary would be the adjective that replaces the words in the italics or italics. All right, so with that being said, you can go on to the next one and you can try it. So this rag soaked in petrol is liable to catch fire. Which adjective?
Flammable.
Yeah, flammable. And third one, your problem is one that cannot be solved. Need some help with this one?
Yes, please.
All right, so an answer for this one could be unsolvable. So yeah, one that cannot be solved, unsolvable. So we can move on to number 4. Here's a plant that comes up year after year.
Yearly.
Yeah, that could work. And we could also use annually. I require a residence that will last me the rest of my life. What kind of residence is that?
I'm not sure.
All right, so it could be a permanent residence, right? So again, here are the answers for this little activity. So his contribution was voluntary. This rag soaked in petrol is flammable. Your problem is unsolvable. And here's a plant that comes up annually. I require a permanent residence. All right, so we have another short activity. And it says, state which adjectives are used incorrectly in the following sentences. And give the correct version with reasons. So yeah, let's go through it. This is by far the better car of the 3 for sale. Is there any adjective being used incorrectly?
Better would be used incorrectly because it is comparing 3 things and not 2.
Right. So instead of better, it would be best. So this is by far the best car of the 3. Number 2, there were less people at the meeting than I expected, which is incorrect.
Were should have been was.
Well, were is a verb, so we're talking about adjectives.
Well, people, because if you're speaking about a meeting, it's obvious that there will have been persons.
All right, so people is a noun, so the adjective that would have been used incorrectly would be less, right? Because as we were saying before, less can only be used with stuff that cannot be counted. For example, less milk, because you can't count every molecule of milk there, right? So people would have to use fewer. So there were fewer people at the meeting than I expected, since people can be counted. Right. So did you get that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So number 3. The three best players in the team are getting old. Are there any adjectives being used incorrectly?
I'm not sure.
All right, that's all right. So in this sentence, it's kind of tricky because from just seeing it, you say, yeah, it's okay, right? So I say the three best players, three best superlative form in the team are getting old. You can't say are getting oldest. So old there is, fine. But people say that the superlative form cannot address more than one idea in a sentence. So it's saying the three best players, you're like saying the first, second, and third players, all three players. So instead of addressing one idea, it addresses three, the three best players. So instead, people will say the best three players in the team are getting old, even though we, in our informal speaking, that kind of sounds weird in a way. But yeah. So that is the issue with the sentence. So where best falls in the sentence would be, what is incorrect. So number 4, I will not allow any further arguments. What's incorrect in this sentence?
Would not should have been I won't.
I won't allow any further argument.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so further in this sentence is the adjective. Will not, it's okay as it stands. Why it's not a double negative? Since will is positive and not is negative. So I will not allow any further argument. So again, further indicates distance and further means additional. So I won't allow any additional argument, right? And lastly, this stamp is most unique. It is worth a fortune. So we know that unique, again, we talked about this earlier. It cannot be compared because once something is unique, it is one of a kind. So most has to be taken out of the sentence, right? So this stamp is unique. It is worth a fortune. And so that is all I have for today. We ended a little early since we're just focusing on adjectives. But do you have any questions? That is.
No, please.
All right. So that is all for today. And on Thursday, we will continue on essay writing. So I hope that you will be there for that class. Oh, wait, let me end the recording.